It's amazing to meet you. It is simply extraordinary.
It all started in 2000 with the release of Unbreakable, starring Bruce Willis and directed by director at the moment M. Night Shyamalan. The astonishing story of an unknown grounded superhero was surprisingly refreshing at the time, and little did we know started a trilogy at the surprise ending of 2016 Split, starring James McAvoy, about a serial killer with multiple personalities. Now, 3 years later, the culmination of that work is delivered in Glass, a fairly contained psychological thriller that, although may not be the superhero action film you're hoping for, instead results in a low-key finale that ties all of the three characters together. The big question everyone asking me on social media is it any good? In my opinion, yes. Once you discard the hope of spandex-wearing superheroes doing heroic feats during the first half of the movie, the second half cements itself as very much a psychological dive, albeit a shallow one, into the history of comic books and what makes a hero or villain. While it does try its best to deliver a solid dive into this, it does come off a little shallow and tacked on at the end. That being said, this doesn't detract from the characters or their journey, and ultimately Glass delivered a satisfying conclusion. The film picks up following David Dunn, played by Bruce Willis, who's working with his son Joseph, Spencer Treat Clark, running an electronics store while trying to track down Kevin Wendell Crumb, played by James McAvoy, who has once again kidnapped teenage girl virgins for the beast to devour. While the two are surrounded and taken to a mental institution by Ellie Staples, played by Sarah Paulson, who specializes in humans who believe they have superpowers and has a way to cure them. The film follows her study of the three characters, including Mr. Glass, played by Samuel L. Jackson, who's been sitting dormant and heavily sedated since the events of Unbreakable. While it is extremely hard to talk about the plot without revealing spoilers, I will not talk any more further details at this point. Part of what makes this film so great is its willingness to dive right into the absurdness of the comic book genre while firmly grounding it in reality. It kind of feels like what Zack Snyder was trying to do with the early DCU, only while it didn't really work there, it works perfectly here. The constant question of the three individual superheroes, or is it all in their heads? If they really are superheroes, why are there only these three? Having this as a constant back and forth really keeps your mind questioning characters' motives, and the ending was really hard to predict. My main complaint about the film is the lack of Bruce Willis. Sure, he gets a decent amount of time in the beginning of the movie, but his material is not the best. The same could also be said for Samuel L. Jackson, who doesn't really start talking until the last 30 minutes of the film. It is a bit surprising, particularly because the film is named after him. It is only a minor niggle though, that may improve on the second viewing. The film still majorly focuses on Kevin Crumb, and while this is not a bad thing at all, as his character is definitely the most interesting, the lack of interactions between Crumb and the other two characters was actually surprising. That being said, it did make for a satisfying finale with all the characters colliding into one epic conclusion that isn't as big as you expect. I definitely want to stress that this is a thriller rather than an all-out superhero flick. Performance-wise, the two standout roles go to Sarah Paulson as the mysterious and questionable Doctor, whose motives are never truly clear. While her monologuing can be a tad drawn out at times, her performance as the Doctor is great, and her one-on-one interactions with each character are intriguing and interesting. Similarly, James McAvoy steals the show again as Kevin Wendell Crumb and the 20 other personalities we get to see in this film. One scene in particular where he is rotating through the Horde in a rapid-fire round showcases just how much of an incredible actor he is. Overall, Glass is not the epic superhero blockbuster that you're expecting. Instead, it takes your turn into a contained psychological thriller that puts performances and story over spectacle, and it works. There's plenty of references to Marvel and DC films, and the scenes shot inside comic book stores are the ones most reflective of the genre and what it's about. While these scenes do start something, they unfortunately don't really dive too deep into comic book lore, which was slightly disappointing. Glass is a fascinating character study into superheroes as well as the genre, and while it may not live up to the expectations of some, it did solidify its place in the current comic book film trend that doesn't look like it's going anywhere anytime soon. Glass hits Australian cinemas January 17.
You think you are superhuman. What if I suggested that you are mistaken?
They've been lying to us all. You were sent here to be an avenging angel. How much do you want to avenge us?
These individuals have lost their perspective.
A lot of people are going to get hurt. Don't do this. You can convince the world we exist. Are you ready? This is where they would paint you with big eyes and bubbles of confusion above your head.